This is CrossfireX. We're here on Xbox Series X taking a look at this experience that is really quite interesting because you basically get completely standalone campaign offerings and then a multiplayer. So the multiplayer is free to play, and we'll have the second half of the video going over the multiplayer if you want to see that, and you can skip to it right away. But here we're talking about the campaign. So this campaign is handled by Remedy, whereas the multiplayer is handled by, I believe, Smilegate, which is, you know, the original folks that put together Crossfire back in the day, which is a Counter-Strike-esque experience. So this is handled by Remedy, which makes absolutely fantastic games, and it's got a really nice sort of, you know, pristine visual style and appeal to it. And you might be wondering, oh, well, how did they accomplish this? And that's kind of interesting in regards to how this runs. So when we go over to the visual, I guess we could quickly look at the gameplay here. You know, there's different settings for difficulty, toggling aim mode, ADS options, everything like that. But when we go to the visuals, we have the option to run a graphics, which basically targets I believe a 4K resolution, 30 FPS with ray tracing. And then there's performance, which will drop the ray tracing and give you the 60 FPS. So that is kind of interesting because when you play with the ray tracing and stuff, you know, you get the reflections and all that. It looks quite nice. And yeah, it's just kind of very interesting to shift over to this, you know, higher frame rate mode, especially when you're coming from 30, because they use, like, I guess you would say a highly stylized sort of like blur almost to it, which is really quite interesting. But yeah, going to performance mode is like such a crazy increase in regards to the, you know, the frame rate of this one. It's actually almost unbelievable. So yeah, this is kind of a neat experience. You have two campaigns here. You have Operation Catalyst and you have Operation Spectre. So these two experiences are basically semi-standalone. Like, you play them entirely by themselves, enjoy the campaign, be like, okay. But if you play Spectre, well, Spectre's the second one, but it's like if you play them, you know, together, it's actually one sort of cohesive story that also leaves things quite open for more stuff to come. Now, I did enjoy the story stuff. It's got some of the, you know, trademark Remedy sort of aesthetics and style and gameplay that you would expect in playing around with your mind. There's certain elements of, like, time and, you know, kind of that element of things. Like, it's hard to describe without spoiling things, but basically time has a big part of what's going on here. And while the first part kind of just throws you into the shoes of these soldiers and switching different perspectives, it does kind of tease this time element quite a bit. And then when you get to the second part, it really plays into what that means. So this is a semi-futuristic kind of game, but it also has elements that are, like, grounded in current time. And we're trying to, like, listen to this guy so that we have this, like, set up well here. Gotta wait for his go and stuff like that.
Get to the helicopter now.
I'm going. And it's got, like, a real mix between these cinematic portions and then regular gameplay. And it's very much stylized. It's basically like a movie in terms of its style and how you're working through it. So if you're expecting something that is more intense or more dynamic, you know, it sort of feels like an older Call of Duty game in that regard. Visually and aesthetically, I think the game does look fantastic. I mean, you know, it's got this really nice sense of, like, not really scale, but just it feels like a lively place. It feels like a lived-in environment that you're sort of working through. And I actually kind of enjoyed the second one more, but I did find that the second one was quite a bit shorter, in my opinion, gameplay-wise. It wasn't as long. So keep in mind, like, the pricing for these ones is quite a bit cheaper than you would see for, like, normal titles and whatnot that would release. So what we're getting here, wow, I really wish I would have streamed this at the performance mode. Makes a world of difference gameplay-wise. This feels much, much smoother. But, you know, you can kind of look at it being like it's about 2 hours each, you know, depending on your skill level and the difficulty and everything that you choose. Normal, it's about 2 hours. The second one was, I think, about an hour and a half. The first one was like just an hour 45, hour, 2 hours, you know, something along there. But, you know, it is quite stylized, it is quite cinematic, it is actually pretty well put together. from that perspective. Now, the AI is definitely not too bright. They are kind of responsive to what you're doing shooting-wise and stuff, but it's kind of like a little bit more of a shooting gallery type of scenario. It's not, you know, anything too gripping or intense. And that's why, again, I kind of go back to that whole, you know, older Call of Duty type thing and feel, but gameplay-wise, visually, it looks like a modern title. And that's, you know, it's fine to me. It really is. It's an alright experience. It is enjoyable. They've got some interesting characters, but very forgettable characters. I never really got attached to any of the individuals on the team. I kind of was playing the second one. I was almost like a little lost in what was happening in regards to some of the characters matching what was going on. So just, you know, keep that in mind gameplay-wise, that story-wise it's not necessarily like the best of setup scenarios. I do like that it switches perspectives though to different characters. That's kind of cool, but in the second one it kind of doesn't do that at all. They feel like very different stories almost, which is a bit strange. But again, they kind of tie into each other. There are collectibles and everything for you to find. When you go to play the game for the first time, you actually have to run the game at like, I think it's like 10 gigs or something when it launched. Might get bigger. You launch the game, and then you're able to choose and download from the 2 extra campaigns. And again, there's different like buying options for how you want to access this. And I'm imagining maybe they could do more down the road. I'd actually like to see little additional slices of story like this. So I think value-wise, it's actually not too bad. You know, it's got some cool feelings. It's got a little bit of mystery, some dreamlike sequences. The first part here, I kind of wanted to do the first part because I didn't want to spoil the second part, but the second part is really, really neat, you know. It's just got this really different aesthetic. This is more of like, you're basically out in a mountainous area dealing with this like mysterious type faction. You're trying to figure out what's going on. There's a bit of twists and turns. Both of the campaigns have some really interesting twists. This one was a very predictable twist for me, but the second campaign I was like, what? So that might be interesting. I don't know if that's spoilers for anybody, but you know, it's a Remedy experience. If you don't know Remedy, there is going to be twists, there's going to be turns, you're going to be like, huh? But I don't think that should really ruin anything for you. I think it'll still be quite surprising as you go into it. So, yeah, the second one is a lot more of a city, has more futuristic vibes to it. Actually, a few different locations. Like this one, you know, obviously you go to different spots. There's like a mine, there's like, you know, more of the city area here that we're in, some, you know, other spots like that. The second one is like you go through this, I want to say it's like a Spanish type city area. And then there's like a huge mountain range place. Well, I don't know, it's got like water and stuff. It's a very interesting mountainous type spot. There's like a jail type area. There's, you know, some really unique locations. A very highly stylized like city, somewhat futuristic like. It's cool. So you got some different neat backdrops. You got some different neat setups. And it's just like, it's really weird though, because you know, these campaigns are basically like you almost got to load into separate games to play these campaigns, and I thought that was just very weird that it was set up like that. Like the accessibility option of how you get to the games is weird because you literally have to like launch a standalone game within this game, and I thought that was just so bizarre. And then I should also mention that they don't have achievements in any of the campaign stuff, so if you like gamer score, that's not a thing. Like, I'm not including that as part of my review thoughts and stuff, but it is something I thought was worth mentioning in case that is something that you might have an issue with. If you like your gamer score and that, it's going to be, you know, a little bit odd because, well, there's nothing for it. Only the multiplayer has the achievements, which is so strange. But yeah, big explosions, high octane action. You've got the 2 different performance mode options to play through. I do really love the performance. It feels a lot better. But you know, I would suggest maybe giving the ray tracing a little bit of a whirl. The whole, like, again, it's got like a very unique stylistic thing to it. Stylistic style, haha. But you know, it looks kind of neat. The reflections and stuff are pretty cool. Like, it feels very realistic. And I think that's kind of the whole game is, you know, you might not like some of the gameplay elements, but like visually, I think they got things down packed. It looks quite gorgeous. Neat backdrops, a neat setting, a decent style. I think the campaign is kind of like the strong part of this experience. It's kind of fun, it's enjoyable. Again, nothing necessarily too specifically cutting edge, but I think you get your value out of it in comparison to other shooter campaigns. And yeah, again, it's not like the best remedies put out, but I think it gets the job done, and it's decent. So this is the multiplayer portion of CrossfireX. It is a free-to-play experience, and there is like battle pass functionality that's present. There are a number of modes with a single map attached to each mode, and there is a lot to talk about for what this has to offer. So we've got two modes here first right off the bat. So we've got a performance sort of mode, and we've got a, well, quality mode. So this is on the quality mode. This is 4K 60. So that is present because you can also click on the scoreboard, and if you notice in the bottom left of the scoreboard there is a frame rate counter, so you can actually see the performance. For me, largely ran smooth, didn't really notice any hiccups when using this mode, so that's absolutely fine here. And then we'll switch over to the 120 FPS option in a sec, because we just don't want to get shut up while we're doing this. So you can go to options, option, and then you can switch it over, and then you'll notice when we resume that it says 120 FPS. Keep in mind that I cannot record at 120 FPS, YouTube cannot provide 120 FPS at the current time, so you're kind of just having to go off of it, and yes, it is significantly more fluid. Now I do believe that the resolution drops to like 1080p because it is definitely not quite as sharp. So you're basically either going for 4K 60 with the quality mode, or you're going for 120 at 1080p. If that changes, I'll be sure to update it in the comments as the pinned comment, but that is what I'm understanding here for the performance. So yeah, having 120 FPS feels phenomenal. Like, it really does. Feels so smooth. When you're playing shooters, 120 FPS is just like absolutely fantastic. It gives you a great edge. You can react faster to what's going on. It's a great option to have. Now the resolution quality goes down quite a bit, but at the same time, it's like the game is still quite gorgeous visually. I think one thing that you definitely couldn't say that about this game was that it doesn't look nice, because it definitely does. I did notice the odd, and I don't know if it'll pop up while we're doing this, the odd like weird hiccup with this. It's not anything that I would say would be like a stutter, but it's just like randomly every few minutes you might notice like a bit of a performance, like a screen freeze pitch up when you're playing at the 120. But it's not something that was too present or not too noticeable. I did think it was worth mentioning though, so there you go. I thought I would put that into the notes here. So this multiplayer, and the game in general, is very okay. It's very down the middle of the road. You know, is it the greatest shooter we've played? No. Is it the worst? No, not at all. It's very alright. I definitely think they need to do a lot of work in regards to the shooting. It definitely feels a little bit awkward at times, and I wish they would, you know, kind of enhance that a bit, and apparently they are going to be doing that. And there's like some lag type stuff occasionally with the characters and, you know, who you're fighting and that. But for me, the biggest issue with the multiplayer, and we're going to switch back to the quality mode, the biggest issue for the multiplayer is just the lack of content. Like, this is very, very light on content. So we got two options. So you could play the modern controls, which has like ADS, you know, and there's two different, like entirely different modes that you can choose to play at any time. You're not like restricted there. So you've got like the modern controls and then the classic controls. So the modern controls are ADS and some other little things here or there that allow you to enjoy modern aesthetics and gameplay movement. Whereas the classic is like no ADS, right? So no aim down scopes, you just gotta like shoot from the hip basically, which is a little bit crazy. Or snipers, there's like a zoom in thing. But anyways, yeah, basically you could choose between those. When you go to the modern control options, and these, you know, this is subject to change too, you get either search and destroy, or you get control, which is what we're playing here. If you do classic, you are able to play team deathmatch, you are able to play search and destroy, you are able to play Spectre, which is like a ghost-based mode, which is actually pretty cool. So like, one side is trying to plant a bomb and they're kind of invisible, and the other side is trying to kill them. And then there's also like, I think it's called Nova or something like that. So in Nova, it's like basically zombies. It's not really that great, it's not really that fun, but it's kind of like you're doing zombies with really awkward sort of bullet pushing, like bullet stopping power. It's really weird. So not my favorite thing. I like the Spectre mode a bit. I do actually kind of enjoy that one. Deathmatch is, again, like each of these modes, I mentioned all of them that are in the game. Seriously, those are all the modes that are present. And they each have one map. So Search and Destroy shares a map. This mode has just this one map. Deathmatch has just one map, which is like a rectangle. And, you know, then the Zombies one has its own map, and Spectre has its own maps. The maps actually look good. They flow very well. I think Search is the strongest mode in this game, personally. But yeah, the biggest issue is just a complete lack of content. And the spawns. Oh, the spawns are just atrocious. It's like, you know, we had a beta a couple years ago, and this is basically the exact same as that beta was. It really hasn't changed at all. But, like, you know, I digress. The spawn system is just, like, absolutely atrocious. Like, sometimes, it's not always bad, but when, you know, one team is dominating another team, like a little turret in front of your base is doing nothing to help you. There's times where I just get, like, obliterated by the same guy that snuck into the spawn, like, 5 times in a row. Drives you crazy. Absolutely crazy. Did not appreciate that at all. So spawning isn't good in this game. But, you know, general gameplay, when we're moving around, you know, doing the objectives, doing control, doing search, it feels good. It does, like, it, you know, it doesn't have any bad multiplayer flow. You go around the maps well, the map design is decent. They all look very different looking maps, but there's just not enough of them. I am so bored. Like, I play Search, and I play this, and it's just like the same thing over and over and over again. So it's a pitiful amount of content. Then you look at, again, the gameplay kind of mechanics. You know, it's weird because the campaign almost feels like it runs, you know, like it has more options for mechanic movement. Like the sliding, the contextual stuff. The only way you could really slide in this one is if you become, you know, like the boogeyman, like one of these characters here, these special characters that you earn over the course of a match. Then you're able to do the sliding and things like that, but it's just really strange. So this is like the weirdest case of, you know, a game that I think visually is quite gorgeous, and gameplay-wise it runs like fine, but it's very middle of the road. Like, it's super generic to the max. It's not, again, it's not like bad, but it's not really like great or good. It's just, it's a shooter. It's like the easiest way that I can kind of throw it together is that, like, you might enjoy it. Like, it's free to play, so if you think it looks kind of neat, you think you might like it, it's free. Try it. It doesn't seem like the microtransactions are very aggressive. They're like cosmetic things or attachments, but you can also earn the attachments with like in-game like earnings by just playing it, so that doesn't seem very hard to do. I've been able to get lots of attachments and customize my weapons. That has not been a problem. So, you know, there's also the battle pass there, which the progression on that seems slow, but there's only like 50 tiers, and again, that could change a lot too, right? As time goes on, this stuff, like all this stuff can change a lot, right? But right now, the biggest thing for me is the lack of content. I've done a lot of streaming of this game. I actually got all the achievements because the achievements are all multiplayer. They're not too hard, it's just time-based. But that's the thing, is it's just like, I'm like almost bored to tears because there's just not a whole lot of substance to this game. And they had so long to work on this experience that you're kind of just like, why did it take that long? But you know, they got things like a scoreboard, they got the essentials, they got a sleek UI. I would wish that we would also get some like sort of mechanics for like pointing out where enemies are. I would have liked an FOV slider. I think that would have been important. But I think it does get the job done, and I think we're going to hop into another match here, so this is quite convenient actually. So this is the Search and Destroy mode, so I thought that was worth showing off. Let's go back and let's do the 120 FPS option. So again, if you didn't see that the first time, you click the scoreboard, you see the 120 FPS there, so you can clearly see that we're playing at this option. I love when they include that kind of thing in this. So this map is really good, and I think this is by far the best part of the experience, is doing the Search and Destroy here. It actually feels really nice, kind of reminiscent of like Dust and stuff. And I mean, you know, it is Counter-Strike inspired, obviously. So this experience offers different ways for you to kind of customize things. You know, I don't think it's too restrictive in unlocking things and having access to stuff, but it is so much a game that is just okay. It's not mind-blowing. It's probably not going to keep your attention for a whole lot of time unless they, you know, do some really big changes to it. But I think it looks really good. You know, visually, like I said, I'd never seen a game that, you know, aesthetically is so gorgeous and so nice, but has such like alright middling sort of things. I think if they improve some of the settings. I think if they improve some of the gameplay, I think this could be very competent as a game, but it lacks content. It lacks things for you to play, and it's just alright. It's okay, it's fine, it gets the job done, but I was kind of hoping for a little bit more from it as well.